I just bought the cheapest E91 facelift in the entire world. And there is one huge reason to why this beautiful LCI model was so cheap. The previous owner was driving this car when it suddenly stopped, and later under interrogation he found out that there was no more oil in the engine and it went kaboom. He did not want to invest any more money into the car and he was considering scrapping it, but luckily he offered it to me. This BMW E91 example has the beautiful diesel engine that all BMW fans love, and 47. There is coolant. I don't know much about this car other than the fact that the engine ran without oil and then it died, and then the previous owner sold it to me. It has a quite interesting interior with the interesting textile. I have actually never seen this kind before. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the iDrive, but it does have a automatic gearbox with the sports steering wheel, the standard passenger door grip peeling, no sunroof, which actually many people prefer. The interior is in pretty good shape, not that dirty. Window button broken. A little bit of a mess here because the battery was disconnected and we had to tow the car home. Actually a super nice car. Now the reason to why you probably even clicked on this video: how much did I pay for a LCI E91 model? So for this BMW with a blown engine, I paid 4,000 crowns. What? Which is like 370 euros. Now that is a good price. In my opinion, you can't really top that. Because Norway, you can deliver any car in any shape to a breaker's yard and you will get 3,000 crowns. So in the worst case, you could sell the lights, some other parts, give it to a breaker's yard and even make some profit. But you guys know on this channel, we don't do that. So it's time to check this car out. So when I try to start the engine, it cranks over just a little bit. Okay. Seems pretty decent. I forgot, but you can actually see if the car is facelift only from the engine cover, at least on N47. Fully clean plate, what you want to call it. Oil is super dark and very glittery. Ooh, metal. Look at all that. In every single gap there's metal. Some play in the turbo, but I don't think that's anything crazy. I also tried turning the engine over right now, and it does turn over, because I think we will not pull it together with the gearbox. The engine mounts. So the engine is super oily, but the gearbox completely dry. Not a single leak. Perfect for us. Now I'm gonna drain the engine oil. As the engine oil is draining, I will disconnect the remaining coolant pipes from the engine. Then the steering column. Oh, freaking took forever. We can finally continue. So now there's a little gap between the gearbox and the engine. I undid all the housing bolts all the way around using a long extension. I also undid the bolts right here for the torque converter. So the engine and the torque converter is also loose from each other. The only bolt I couldn't reach from the under with a long extension was the housing bolt, the one all the way to the top. I used a 11mm wrench, just put it on. And one of the last things to remove is the AC compressor, because that is not coming out with the engine. Seems like I need to remove the alternator. Okay, so I think we can squeeze the engine out. And it is out. Actually impressively easy when you disconnect the cables at the ECU. A lot faster than unclipping everything in the engine bay. So I'm pretty sure that this engine is garbage, but we need to anyway strip it down for the turbo cables, everything, and then we might need to remove the head. I might have found another engine with broken timing chains. I'm thinking if the head is okay on this engine, we might use that on the other engine that has the broken timing chains. But yeah, firstly, put it on the engine stand and strip it down. Off. Yes. So the top, at least the camshafts, look perfect, you could say. You can see it's not new, but you wouldn't say that this engine ran without oil. No scoring that you could feel with your hand. Chain also is tight. Now I want to check the timing. So the flywheel is locked and the camshaft is in time. What the heck? What is that? Is that the bearing? So here you can see that the crank has melted the bearings and all the things here, pieces of bearing melted and pushed out. So at this point there's no reason to do anything else with this block, because probably the main bearings are also destroyed. So we do need another engine, and the only thing that should be usable from this engine, I think, is the engine head. Now we can remove the engine head and see the state of that, and if we can manage to use it on another engine. So now I marked all the valves, and I will use this tool, and I will remove There you go, now all the valves are out. Looks decent, I guess. Now I will clean the head up as best as I can. Now I have already gave the head to the machine shop, and I'm just making the valves ready for install when we get it back. Now I'm just using a little razor blade to scrape off the bigger things. Then I use Scotch-Brite pad. And the intake cleans up even better. And then I did all the other valves off camera. Super clean. At this point, I'm not even sure what else we are gonna use from this block. We definitely need to remove the high pressure fuel pump. That's it. Earlier, I also did remove this thing, this sensor, and I did inspect the pump, so there's no metal shavings. So this pump is still good. So the original plan was to overhaul the head and pick up the engine with the broken timing chains from a friend of mine. But he's a bit busy right now, so I couldn't get a hold of him to pick it up. So since I want to fix this car fast, I was looking for other engines with broken timing chains, and I couldn't find any. All of them were, well, expensive. So then randomly a 1 Series popped up for sale as a parts car, and I took contact with the seller, and I found out that the 1 Series was broken because of a broken high pressure fuel pump, and then it sends the shavings through all of the fuel system, and that's perfect because we don't need that. So then we agreed on 3,500 crowns for a supposedly good engine. The only problem, I need to remove it myself. So that's what I did. I went there, put all the tools in my car, pulled it, and well, it's here. So I also loosened the oil filter and inspect that. No metal shavings. So I think for now we're gonna use this engine and just check the timing, replace the timing chains, check the bearings if they're worn. Then we need to do something about it, if not, not. However, I have already delivered the head for the resurfacing and also removal of one broken glow plug that broke. So I will use it probably in the future on some other car. Good to have laying around. You can see that the vibration damper is all cracked and on life support. Well, it's good we have like 20 other ones. So here's the engine. Now I need to clean out the mess in the car because actually some coolant leaked out and stuff like that. There you go. Now the engine is as disassembled as it's gonna get for now, and for legal reasons we will deliver the engine to the machine shop so they will wash the engine for me. Now the engine is clean, no more oil everywhere. I just realized that we have another problem. Because this engine is from a 1 Series LCI, I thought that the engine was going to be the same, but it's not. This engine has the engine code of N47D20A. And this engine that we removed from the car, it says it here, N47D20C. I read a lot about it on the forums, and the blocks and the head is the same, some things around it. So for example, the manifold comes originally without swirl flaps, the GR is different, and also the oil filter housing is different. Many people have used this engine in a D20C car. You just need to swap over the wiring loom because there's a few differences. For example, there is a pipe on the manifold that has an extra sensor, and then you also don't have the actuator for the swivel flaps. And of course the injectors are different. That shouldn't be a problem in our case, since we are gonna reuse most of the old things anyway. We're not gonna replace the oil filter housing. You can see that it looks like this on this engine, and on the engine we removed, it's actually fully in plastic. I'm not replacing it because there is some kind of little radiator heat exchanger inside. I'm guessing cooling the oil off. And the one on the old engine is gonna be destroyed from the metal shavings and stuff like that. I don't want to use that. I did check real OEM. For some reason the part codes are the same. I also checked the oil filter. It's exactly the same as the other engine. Also, we can see that the vibration damper is fully cracked, barely holding. Some carbon buildup, but actually not bad. Let's see if the injectors are seized. Not really. No. No. And no! Yeah, but just take them straight out and put them straight into the bin. Timing chain does seem kind of loose. Okay, so now I'm gonna lock the crankshaft in order to check the timing. And the timing is correct. Now I want to flip it over so we can remove the oil pan and inspect the bearings. So the oil pan, nothing bad. Yeah, perfect. No dirt, nothing, to be honest. Reverse thread. The only thing that I'm not really a big fan of right now, how dark the oil is and stuff. Man, just as I thought. They look brand new. Like what? This one as well. They look like they have driven 1,000 kilometers. The journals, slightly different shade in the middle maybe, but absolutely perfect. I'm not replacing these bearings, they are absolutely fine. There's absolutely no need to replace them because technically if you have a good oil pressure, the bearings doesn't touch the crank anyway. There's a thin layer of oil all the way around the bearing, and that's what the crankshaft spins on. Now the torque, 20 Newton meters. And 70 degrees twice. Yep, same story. And same story again. Because these are stretch bolts, you have to replace the bolts every time. I also want to inspect the main bearings real quick, because last time people were complaining that I didn't change them. Okay, so that's how the main bearings look. So you can see that it has slight discoloration, but that's like the first layer worn off, and that's completely normal. The journal itself as well, absolutely perfect. So the bearings, absolutely perfect to use, not a single problem with them. So now the torque for the main bearings is 25 firstly, then it's 50, and then it's actually 60 degrees twice. If there was something wrong with oil pressure, stuff like that, the bearings that we checked would have at least some signs of not normal wear. Now I will put the flex plate back because I want to put the engine in time again, because we will remove the timing chains to replace them. So now I need to release the high pressure fuel pump sprocket. Of course. So the oil pump chain immediately I can remove. Okay, now I just want to remove all the tensioners and stuff. All of them are original BMW. And that's the chain. And that's the chain. I don't have another front seal, so I need to be careful to not damage it. Now, since we have checked all the bearings, and that's good, we don't need to do anything in that department anymore, so we can put back the oil pump. Okay, let's put all the bolts back. So the oil pump bolts are torqued to 15 Newton meters and 90 degrees. Then the oil pickup, I inspected it, it is completely clean. So now we need to also remove this high pressure fuel pump because, well, it's garbage. By the way, I just want to show, this is how you know if your high pressure fuel pump has failed. So you undo these two bolts, you remove this whole, oi, it's leaking. But you remove the sensor, then you can see all the shavings on it. Inside the pump, all that down there is shavings. Look at the mount. And all that gets sent through the entire fuel system in the whole car. So, garbage. Just like that. Now I want to remove the EGR, because when I checked the barcode, that was also different. So I don't want to take any chances and later that something's different and then we need to do it again and waste our time. Okay, so there's actually a massive difference on the EGR. I was putting the EGR on and this freaking screw stripped out for some reason. Upper one is good, but the lower one stripped out. So I will put a helicoil in there. At least I will try to. Now I did put on some pipes off camera, vacuum lines. Now I finally got the parts, so we can start assembling this engine together. So first order of business. Okay, first thing, oil spray nozzle. 10 Newton meters. Then the lower timing chain tensioner, also 10. Good. Then we take the new high pressure fuel pump sprocket and the new chain. Just put the bolt slightly in. Then I'm lubing up the guide rail and pushing it in place. Also the guide rail bolt, and the same thing on the other guide rail. The guide rails, they are torqued to 20 Newton meters. Now I can tighten down the high pressure fuel pump sprocket bolt. Then this is the oil pump chain. Might seem confusing for you guys right now since the engine is upside down. Okay, reuse the original oil pump sprocket. Then I'm adding some thread lock on the bolt. The torque for the oil pump sprocket is actually firstly 5 Newton meters. I use this tool to hold it in place as I'm tightening it down. And now it is 90 degrees. Yeah. Now we'll flip it because I want to torque down the high pressure fuel pump sprocket to 65 Newton meters. Now I will release the timing chain tensioner. Then here I have the upper sprocket and here I have the chain. Then I will fish it down and put the chain on like that. Now we'll put in the lower guide rail. So now I will slide in the guide rail and then this guide rail, and I just put one bolt in to hold the upper sprocket in place for now. Now that is done, I just put a little bit of oil. Here is the new gasket. Now I'm adding a little bit of sealant in the corners. And here's the whole cover. I did clean it up as best as I could, but all this is just embedded into the metal. So my camera overheated for some reason, so I tightened down all these bolts by feel. And since we're not going to remove the plate anymore, we can reinstall the rear main seal. Of course, there's a special tool that you need, which, why would you even have that? Like, duh. Okay. I would say that's perfect. And then there is the little plate like that, and that's gonna be able to spin freely with nothing in the way. But what we are gonna do is reinstall the oil pan. Then this is the oil pan gasket. Then here's the oil pan, which I did clean for a long time because it was so dirty. It was so dirty. But that's basically as clean as I'm gonna get it. And it goes on like this. Then we can put the little magnetic plate. Yeah, so now the torque, 120. Is basically done. Now I can flip the engine up again. One thing I had forgot was that I had also ordered these gaskets here. There are these little O-ring gaskets type things that sit between the camshaft housing and the head. So I had forgot, but I had ordered these as well. Now the flywheel is locked, and when you lock the camshafts, it's important that, as you can see, the two dots on the left gear and the one dot on the right gear line up. And it's gonna line up if you didn't open these bolts and disassemble the camshafts. So then you lock the camshaft so both ends touch the block, and then you come over to this side and you can put the sprocket on the gear. So then we're gonna put the tensioner in, and that's gonna turn the whole sprocket a little bit like this because the chain is gonna get tighter. When you check the sprocket, you have to make sure that you have enough play between those three holes for the three bolts to move if the sprocket shifts. So here we see we have a bunch of plays. I have a bunch of plays here and here, so it can be all the way at the corner. So now sprocket bolts in, but barely tight, so it's completely loose. You are probably not gonna get as lucky as me, and you will probably have one hole here, and the last hole is gonna be at the bottom. So now you will only tight two of them, and then you're gonna rotate the engine and add the third one. But now I can see it's loose. And now finally I'm gonna add the upper timing chain tensioner. And then I will torque it to 70. We know that the flywheel is locked right there. Chain is tight. The upper locking tool is in place. And we can tighten the three bolts for the sprockets. So actually the three sprocket bolts are torqued to 17 Newton meters. Now I will remove the tool, I will remove the locking pin, and I will turn the engine. Flywheel locked, and the camshafts are in time. Then here I have the valve cover, which took 10 freaking years to clean, and a new gasket. Okay, now time to put back the injectors. I cleaned them up as best as I could. Ay, 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 there's so much diesel leaking everywhere. Oh no. Then now I will reinstall the intake manifold here. I did wash it as best as I could and it's pretty clean right now. I also removed the servo flaps. Here's the tool that plugs the hole. Now we can put back the whole cable work. Then also the oil filter. Now the whole engine is complete. There are no more things to put on this engine before you remove it from the stand. Here is the turbo. Is on. The engine mount bracket, and it sits like that. Now I'm just gonna put on the whole positive cable. And now finally we can put back the DPF, which is not that DPF anymore. That was not me, by the way, it was like that when I bought it. So I have a feeling that this car is actually tuned. Okay, now the torque converter bolts. Then the whole starter motor. Okay, that's the old fuel filter out. Here's the new filter. Now at the bottom everything is on and ready. You can put on the alternator. Then the positive terminal. I also earlier put back the AC compressor in place. Then I'm gonna put back the belt. I don't have a new one, but I do have two old ones. Okay, yeah, this one's in a lot better shape. Then the massive charge pipe that took forever to clean. There's also a sensor. So now the coolant pipes. Okay. Then of course the turbo intake pipe. Put in the little screw. Ooh, holy cow! Filter. Now the last step is to add some oil. So N47 is 5.2 liters of oil. 5W30 full synthetic. I'm not gonna add coolant yet. We'll start it and see if it runs. Oh yeah, this vacuum line right here, I forgot. So now I connected the battery and I connected up the diagnostic tool. I actually had the battery connected when we removed the engine. Yeah, okay, there's no point. I'm gonna clear all the codes. Now I'm gonna bleed the fuel system. I'm gonna run the setting twice since I have experienced running it one time being not enough. Okay, so now the function is done. Let's see if it starts. Let the starter cool off. I don't think I forgot to connect anything. The air conditioning on the lowest setting and put the heat on max. So it's driving. However, the suspension is in an awful state. The wheel bearing sounds like a whole fighter jet. I'm not sure if you can pick up the sound from the on the video, but it's insane. I think that's the worst sounding rear wheel bearings I have heard. Runs pretty damn good. So this car, it runs pretty good. The engine is performing flawlessly. However, the rest of the car is awful. The suspension is absolutely the worst suspension I have driven on with a car. The bearings shot, the shocks shot in the back. The car is jumping around. You drive over bumps, you can hear the whole suspension, 10 different sounds. So that's just absolutely insane. The tires shot, but however, the engine is strong and the engine software is remapped. In my life, I don't think I have driven a 2-liter diesel that is actually this fast. It is actually insane. People are gonna go mad at me, but this 2-liter diesel is actually fast. The original plan was that we fixed this whole car in one video, but after fixing the engine and testing the car, it's not gonna happen. It's too much work to actually do in one video because the whole suspension needs to get checked over, then we need to get the car inspected and passed. So that's a whole video alone. Then we also need to clean the car and stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. In the next video on this car, we will need to also take it for a good test drive. Test it because this car is actually really fun to drive, even though it's only a 2-liter diesel. If you guys enjoyed, please consider subscribing. If you like to support this build and other builds and my channel, there is a Patreon in the description. And as always, I hope to see you in the next video.